now. All right, welcome to NGAdvocate podcast. I think it's number 20. We're here, it's Viral and myself. We're here with Hall County Solicitor General candidate John Batchelor. He's running to take over the office that Inez Grant holds now. She was appointed by Governor Kemp, and this will be actually her first election that she's ran for the office. John, good to have you on the show, and give us a little bit of your background, a little bit of your history, and how we're a little bit familiar. I am, because I listened to you at the debate, and I read, and you gave a little bit of a background then. You only had like 2 minutes, but you dug into it. But you seem to have a good long history in prosecuting and wanting to be a prosecutor, and get into how your background and how that became about.
Okay. Well, I'm raising my family here in Hall County. We're actually down here in South Hall, and they're in the Cherokee Bluff School District. I went to undergrad at the University of Georgia, where I got a business degree. I was a teacher straight before going to law school, where I was a football coach and a baseball coach down in Brookwood High School. I grew up in a legal family. My dad was a Superior Court judge down in Gwinnett County. He practiced law for 50 years and retired last year, but still does some senior judge stuff. My uncle's a law enforcement officer. My brother-in-law is a law enforcement officer. Oldest son wants to be a law enforcement officer. So definitely a law and order family. Went to a Christian law school, Regent University up in Virginia. And when I got out of law school, I decided to become a prosecutor. I mean, part of that was I spent my summers down in my dad's courtroom, or some other judges, watching the prosecutors try pretty serious cases. And I got a job in the Hall County Solicitor's office to start, and just really kind of started getting passionate about victim cases. Where I met my wife, who was a victim advocate at the time, and spent 10 years in prosecution. I've done just about every single type of trial you can do, from storage of junk and spare tire violations to loose dogs, all the way up to murder and feticide. Lots of drug cases, lots of trafficking type cases, a lot of sexual crimes against children, which gives me kind of a broad experience for something like the solicitor's office. And for those that don't know, the solicitor's office is where a lot of prosecutors get their start. You try misdemeanors, with the main focuses being DUI prosecution, family violence crime prosecution, and then you also have vehicular homicides and sexual batteries that you deal with as well, on top of like traffic types of offenses. And so it's a great place for prosecutors to get their start, because when you get out of law school, you don't know how to try a case. You don't know how to pick a jury. You don't know how to do a jury charge to the judge. You don't really know how to argue the law. You know a lot about the law, but you don't know how to actually handle all that stuff. And there's things that go on in a trial that you really need a good, what I like to call it, a toolkit, especially with victim type crimes, because you don't know what's going to happen on the stand. They could recant, they could not show, they could tell a couple of different stories, and it's just kind of what you can do legally to get the truth to the jury. And with my experience, I feel like from coaching, broad legal experience, that I'm a good fit as far as getting the teamwork back into the Hall County Solicitor's office. And so that's what made me decide to run.
So could you kind of go over what exactly happened prior to your opponent's appointment? How did she get the appointment? Why did she get the appointment? Because I know it's been all over the news in the Gainesville Times and stuff, and I think a lot of people don't fully understand what the previous solicitor got fired for, essentially.
Well, basically stealing victim funds and grant money, using it for personal gain. For those that saw stuff like cremating her own dog, some jewelry repair, I believe like a propane tank at her house, but she was using victim funds and a lot of them, and then expensing them to the county or expensing them off of the grant money and using it for personal gain. She ended up getting indicted. The GBI got involved after, I believe it was Fox 5 had done some reports and interviewed all the people that worked for her prior and indicted her for it. It was felony indictment. She ended up working out a plea deal, and part of that plea deal was to resign from office.
So is that plea deal worked out with the state AG? So is that Chris Carr currently? Is that who?
It would have been with Chris Carr's office, yes.
Okay, and so Chris Carr's office and him specifically are kind of responsible for this slap on the wrist type judgment that she got.
It was one of his assistants that did it. The way that it went down is one of the attorney general, assistant attorney general that was handling the case. They kept getting asked for pretrial diversion. She said no. She kept saying no. She took a job, I believe, with the as a U.S. attorney, and when the new assistant AG came into the case, the plea offer was done quickly. I don't know who authorized the plea offer, but it was pretty much a slap on the wrist. Yes, and she got basically nothing.
How much money did she end up stealing? Did they have a final total amount?
Well, there's conflicts about the total amount that was proven. It's my understanding that it's over $100,000 is what it was. Now, I don't have the exact numbers. I know that paperwork is still in the solicitor's office. Somebody probably in maybe day one do an audit of that and figure that out. But the evidence was returned to the solicitor's office and it's sitting in a box in the solicitor's office now.
I gotcha.
And
I
mean, she got about, and it just shows what we're trying to change in this county. I mean, you shouldn't be getting a slap on the wrist. I don't care if you went to work for the U.S. Attorney's Office or whoever. She basically got off scot-free. I mean, she didn't even have to give up her attorney's license or anything for even. She didn't even get suspended or anything, did she?
Well, she was suspended. I think her suspension's up next month. Right.
It was just a minor inconvenience. I mean, it was nothing to really write home about.
Correct.
And so the current solicitor was appointed by Governor Kemp. So how does that process work?
Well, you submit your resumes. They have a form that you can fill out online that talks about your history and what you've done as an attorney, and then it's a selection process from the governor's staff, and I think the final person the governor signs off on. It's not like the judges where the judges go to actual judicial qualifying committee of people and then the final 3 interview with the governor. It's just kind of a application and political appointment situation.
So essentially it's just an appointment to fill out the term of whatever hers was going to be, and then
until the next election. Yes.
So that's where we're at now.
Because there's a lot of people saying, we've heard online, well, why didn't he get appointed, instead of Inez, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not how this works in the solicitor. Now, if it would have been a higher up office, they might have a little credence if they put y'all in the same room together or whatever. But that's not how this works. This is mainly, they just basically look at what's on the sheet of paper and they choose who they think, or there's some politics involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding that politics involved. You go around and you ask people to support you or write letters of recommendation and things of that nature. But as far as how the governor decides, I don't know. But it's not as detailed of a process as it would be for like a judge's position or something like that.
Right. See, I thought they should have left that assistant that took over, the black lady that took over. I thought she did a good job to clear up the mess that Woodard left, and then all of a sudden she's just gone, and then Grant's put in.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of
she's
a situation.
Yeah, she's a great attorney. She's actually a judge now, so in Athens. Yeah, so she ended up doing pretty well.
Well, good. Now, you know, you had mentioned you coached. Were you practicing law while you were coaching, or was that just part of you were coaching while you were going through law school, or?
No, I was actually a high school teacher and coach. It was before going to law school, and
Okay.
I coached football and baseball. Won some state championships while we were there, and really enjoyed that. But then kind of got the itch to go to law school while I was there. You know, people have always told me that I'd be a great lawyer, especially with the respect that my dad had. I've always been known to be ethical and straightforward, and that's when I decided to go to law school while I was a teacher and coach, and start my legal career after that.
Okay, and coaching, I believe I'm a big proponent of sports. I used to coach college and pro prospects travel baseball for years, and I played baseball in college, and I believe sports teaches you for about anything that you can come across in life. I mean, it teaches you to deal with stress. You got to learn how to deal with people, and you've got to perform and keep it cool, be cool, calm, and collected while you are performing to be successful. And that seems like it transitioned well into the law field.
It definitely does, and especially like a prosecuting office, because, you know, take a defense, for example. If I can be the best linebacker in the world, but I need that defensive tackle to plug a gap. And so
Right.
you got to rely on people and trust that they're going to do their job and not try to do it all yourself. And you got to work together as a team. It's one of the greatest assets that a prosecuting office has, is that they work together as a team. I mean, it's pretty tough for the defense counsel if they're having to deal with the whole office. If an issue arises and you got a lot of people looking at it and they're all working together and trying to be successful together, I mean, that makes you pretty strong, because, you know, issues do arise in court, and it's important that you get that answer. And if you got people, you know, helping you behind the scenes, you got your paralegals and your victim advocates and your investigators and the other attorneys all on board, and you aren't in competition with each other, but you're trying to do what's right and protect the community, you do well. It's just like a football team. It's like playing defense.
Right. You know, it's a good thing. Now, when Viral had touched on it just a little bit ago, like my dad, hell, he's 75. He didn't even know Hall County still had a solicitor. And explain the difference, between the DA's office and the solicitor's office. And I know a lot of people, they think law and order is real. I mean, you know, and how things work, and, you know, and I know that's the DA's office, but they think they don't even know what a solicitor does, and, you know, and how important that role is, and how it can curb crime at the entry level and keep people from getting into the felonious crimes.
Correct. And that's one thing, is when after you've worked in a district attorney's office like me, you see that a lot of the major crimes that happen in the big trials, you'll see that they've had 10, 15 misdemeanors before getting into big trouble. They had 10, 15 chances to get that offender's attention and try to get them to turn their life around, and failed. And I think you see that with a lot of the slap on the wrist kind of prosecution that has kind of taken hold of the legal system, and that's got to stop. You got to get people's attention if you want them to change their behavior. And so that's something that I want to bring back into prosecution is, you know, is there a place for rehabilitation and rehabs? And yes, but you got to do the punishment phase first. And if you don't, then people will just realize, and criminals talk, you know, me and you were talking about this beforehand, before we started recording, is the career criminals know what areas are soft on crime and what areas are tough on crime. And as Hall County grows, it's going to be important that those type of people know that if you commit shopliftings here in Hall County, that we're going to be tough on you. And so that's kind of, but you were talking about the difference between, you know, felony and misdemeanors. The DA's office handles felonies, which is punishable by 12 months or 1 year or more in prison. Misdemeanors are up to 12 months in jail. You don't actually go to prison and be in county jail, and 12 months is the maximum that you can get. Now, if you've committed multiple crimes, they can run it consecutive so that, it stacks on top of each other. But as far as like one single entity, but it's important that the DA's office and the solicitor's office work well together. In addition, because there's crimes that kind of right there on the line. Is this a felony or is this a misdemeanor? And you got to be able to investigate and work together to figure out who's best to handle this. Is this something that needs to go up to the district attorney's office, or is this something that that is a misdemeanor? And so they have to work together and communicate so that cases don't just keep, I could send something up saying it's a felony. Well, if I'm not working well with them, they get sent back down. We just lost a lot of time.
Right.
It's important that they work together, but the difference is the level of punishment.
Right. Now, how many, I mean, we hit on this earlier too. We've noticed, I have in the paper, a lot of people, like you mentioned, people know they're soft on crime. A lot of them, it seems like every crime you read about in the paper, at least 50% of them are here on WDUN or wherever. They're from out of town. They're from Lawrenceville. They're from Sewanee. They're from Athens. They're, from surrounding areas. And is that tied to how the DA and the solicitor's office has been ran the last decade or so, just giving a lot of plea deals just to get them off the books?
Right. And that's really the main difference between me and my opponent. Because if you hear my opponent speak, they'll be like, oh, well, most people, they've learned their lesson. They just need some community service, or they need pretrial diversion. And it's actually in the paper when she first started, that was her main goal, was to ramp up pretrial diversion, which is pretrial diversion. For those who don't know, it's you do some classes and then it gets dismissed and erased off your record completely. It's the ultimate slap on the wrist, and criminals know that. They know what areas are that's available. The perfect example that we were talking about is when I was a prosecutor in Walton County. If you're running drugs from Atlanta to Athens, you don't drive through Walton County, and the criminals know that, and they know that they're tough on crime, so they'll take another path. And I feel like in the Hall County, especially with the growth, we need some of these criminals to start taking another path, because if they come here, we're going to hold their feet to the fire. And that's where we really are different. As far as me and my opponent, is she's more, let's do pretrial diversion. I'm more, let's hold people accountable.
Right. And I'm a firm believer in rehab too, but some people just need, some help and rehab. But at the same time, you've got you can see a pattern coming. You see the same names over and over and over, and enough's enough, because, and we've hit on this with several people, and I know, John, we talked about this right before Viral came on. Hall County's at a crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
We are in that transition from a small town to an urban type area. And we've got to, like you said, we've got to make a choice which way we want to go, and tell us your plan, the best way to get the county going in the right direction, because the growth is not going to stop.
Right. Yeah. The growth is not going to stop. And so when you're growing and you get bigger, you get less oversight. You don't necessarily know who the people are around you. And so what you have to do is you have to have, clear written policies, clear plea recommendations, in the office, so that everybody knows what they're doing. But not only that, is you got to start really investigating cases. It's like we were talking about with the shopliftings, about how, you might at first glance sit there and be like, oh, well, they took baby formula. This person needs pretrial diversion because, they must be poor, or they must have a baby that needs to eat. Well, if you actually dig into the case and look at the person, you might find out, no, they're selling this on Facebook Marketplace. They don't have a baby. They're just here to commit crime and trying to get away with it. And they know if they do actually get caught, that, worst case scenario, they're going to get pretrial diversion. Sorry about that. My phone was ringing.
No, we understand.
It rings on my computer. I don't. but it's silent on my phone, but it's ringing on my computer.
Right.
So it's important that you get prosecutors to understand that you actually got to look in the case, dig into the case first, find out, what the situation is for this defendant, and then act accordingly, because that's what you want to stop. You want that person that's wanting to steal stuff to put it on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or whatever. Don't come here. Don't come to our stores, because we're going to figure it out, and we're going to track down everybody.
Right, and that goes into, like we were talking about. You had mentioned it at the debate. You just want it where you don't have to hunt somebody down to get something out behind a locked cabinet at Walmart or Walgreens. If you want a tube of toothpaste, by God, you shouldn't have to hunt an employee down to unlock the freaking cabinet.
Right. And I think of that debate I was talking about, because my daughter was about to go to a birthday party, and I was like, I hope she doesn't pick Legos, because I don't know if y'all's children are like, but my child likes to hold it and look at all of them.
Oh yeah.
And trying to track somebody down just to look at Legos, it's frustrating, because it shouldn't be that way. Or if my headlight's out, you try to go to the Walmart down here in Oakwood. Well, the light bulbs are locked up. So you got to go run somebody down. I just want to change my light bulb real quick so I don't get a ticket between Walmart and on my way home, because I realized that my headlight's out. And a lot of people don't understand, but shoplifting got so bad in Macon that Target shut their doors. They said, well, it's not worth it anymore. And you don't want that to happen here. So that's when I talk about the crossroads, is like, which direction are we going to go?
Right.
And are we going to go the direction of Macon, or are we going to go the direction of keep Hall County to be a safe place?
Well, and that makes you wonder whether Walmart just made a decision to remodel the Oakwood store, like for the second time in 5 years, and they hadn't touched the one on Shallowford. I mean, I'm wonder if it's worked. They just kind of saying, we're not going to screw with the one on Shallowford because crime's so high at that store.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't even go over there without seeing 4 or 5 police there at all times.
Right. And when you're raising your family here, you don't want to walk into the store like that.
No.
And you don't want your kids to even have to see that. You don't want them to be aware that people are stealing stuff. That why are the police always at Walmart? Why is it normal to go to a store and just to see the police with their blue lights? And that's just not the atmosphere of Hall County. And we don't want that.
Right. And you go over there, they've got 4 or 5 parks already marked where you can't park into it for law enforcement. So they're right there at the front of the store at all times.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to get into the couch part because we know that fiasco, but can you go into how important it is to have a non-biased and a quality and transparent sheriff's department, and how they have to work with your office a good bit, and y'all have to have each other's trust and know basically what each hand's doing.
Right. And it's important too with your law enforcement. We got a lot of great officers, a lot of great deputies, and they take the stand, and the jury knows, you want the situation with your law enforcement that when they're up on the stand, the jury can trust that what the officer's saying is 100% true. There's no doubt about it. You listen to them and they're doing a good job. You got to make sure that they're investigating. From a prosecutor standpoint, one thing that we used to do in Walton County is we would keep reports where there was mistakes made. And then we would do a training where we would do the direct exam, and then one of the prosecutors would do the cross exam based off of those mistakes in the report, so that they could see how important it was to be so detailed and not leave things out. And it was would be a good training that even the advanced officers appreciated, because it helps them see holes in their cases and things that could be misconstrued by a defense attorney that they may not have realized.
Well, yeah, and the thing is you get some sharp defense attorneys, if you just word it a certain way, they can get something thrown out on a technicality that was totally taken out of context.
Correct.
You don't want to, it's a fine line. You don't want to prep your officers or any witness to speak, make it look like they've been coached. But at the same time, they've got to be aware, hey, you've got to you can't deviate. You've got to just answer the questions and not, elaborate on anything, because it destroys your cases.
Right. And not only that, is from the other side of it is, as a prosecutor, you get bombarded by the defense attorney and they're saying certain facts happened or it was this way. You got to have, prosecutors got to have, trust to be able to reach out and to reach out to the officer and tell them about it and ask them and get their opinion before making a decision. Not only that is you want to have the trust and the communication to, like, let's say if the vehicular homicide happens, that they give you a call and be like, hey, Solicitor General, you may want to come out here. There's a vehicular homicide. We don't know if it's a felony or misdemeanor. Can you come out here? Yes, absolutely. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. Or, we're investigating this. Do you have any ideas on some investigative tools, and just talking back and forth and working the cases together beforehand so that you make a solid case, so that, when you go forward, you can be confident going into trial.
Right. And to do that, you've got, like you mentioned, you've got the public's got to have trust in the solicitor's office, and they got to have trust in the police department, sheriff's department. And right now in Hall County, I don't think the public's got trust in either one of them.
Mm-hmm. And part of that, the solicitor's office needs to get out in the community. I mean, one thing that Stephanie Woodard did that was good is you were required to take part in something in the community. She wanted you out in the community. So, like, when I first started, since I was a coach, I would coach at the Gainesville Park and Rec to get me out in the community so that you were accessible and you would see the things that make Hall County great. Then I went on to be a part of the board for Edmondson Telford Center, and I got involved with the Domestic Violence Task Force, became chairman of that. And just to have that community involvement, being accessible, going out to events. I mean, we'd even go to the lake cleanup. Once a year they go out there and they clean up the trash around Lake Lanier. As a prosecuting office, you need to be involved in that stuff. You need to be out in the public, and you need to be out in the community. And I think that would help with a lot of the perception if they, met their prosecutors and knew that they were, good people that cared about the community.
Right. Now, this is just out of nowhere. I was just thinking, I didn't ask Shiv this question when he was on the other day, but I've always wondered, are y'all more involved with like the RYDC and those kind of crimes, or is that more of the DA? I mean, how does that whole problem? Because I know you see a lot of youth probably come through the solicitor's office. I mean, does that have to be bound over? Because I know there's a lot of horror stories come out of the RYDC, and I'm not trying to get into that. I'm just kind of wondering how that whole ball of wax kind of figures into everything.
The RYDC and juvenile court would be a branch of the district attorney's office.
Okay.
So that's who handles those.
Right. I was just wondering, because those are our youth that we've got to try to rehab before they graduate into something worse,
Right.
And okay, that's cool. We're just trying to see, we just don't know what a solicitor does, and most people don't. It's just, now what's your plan to get you had touched on it a little bit at the nonpartisan debate that Hall Informed had. You did a great job. Tell us a little bit your vision moving forward and how you would kind of reform the office and try to keep some continuity in the office instead of it being like a revolving door.
Yeah. The one thing I do is start your focus back on public safety and standing up for crime victims. That's the number one thing, is that should be the focus of the office. And so I would get back to that. I also need to be clear written policies put in place. I think I told the situation that one of the former paralegals that left, there's something called the TPO registry. And what that is like, if there's a no contact provision, if there's been a violent crime and the judge has to order that that the defendant can have no contact whatsoever with the victim of the crime. And that, down the road, sometimes that gets amended to no violent contact and things of that nature. But there's a registry, because it doesn't do any good to have a TPO if they can just go to another county or follow you to vacation. And so there's a registry that will allow law enforcement to look that up. So if you have an issue, if you get down to Gwinnett County to go to the Gwinnett Braves game and the defendant is there and you have to go to the police, they can see it in Gwinnett County. So it's a very important registry. And it's something that in Hall County that they started doing about, I guess, a year and a half ago. And so the paralegal went up, you had to get this paperwork to the clerk's office, and they wanted to know who would be responsible for different aspects of getting the information to the clerk's office to put in the registry. And they were told, I don't know, go figure it out. And, that's not leadership. That makes it to where, there's 3 divisions because there's 3 judges, where each division's doing potentially something different. Nobody really knows who's responsible for what. Even getting witnesses to the stand, who's responsible for victims, who's responsible for loss prevention officers, who's responsible for the police officers. You got to have clear written policies so that everybody knows what they're doing and everybody's doing it the same way.
Right.
And if they're written, then they can look it up. If there's a question, then come ask me and I will give you an answer, not make you figure it out yourself. And I think that helps because it brings the stress level down. If people know what they're supposed to do, then it's not chaotic. And because, the courtroom's stressful enough. When you get back into the office, it should be an area where you're supported, where you know what to do, where the stress level is down, where you can communicate with each other and help each other out. And that in itself will help reduce the turnover problem because it'll be a good place to work when you're in the office. It'll be an actual team with everybody, in the boat rowing the same direction rather than, let's just survive today and hope we make it to tomorrow. That's just not the environment that the solicitor's office needs.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like they need somewhere to decompress. It's a safe space, just they can go in there and I get it. And we're not seeing that a lot now. From what I understand, I don't know much about it. I used to know a lot of people in law enforcement and stuff, and they've left because all the nonsense in the past decade, 15 years. And it's just gotten worse and worse. And Hall County's got to have a change. And I think you bring some fresh ideas to the table, even though they may not be new ideas. They're new to this part, Hall County for the last 15, 20 years. We've gotten softer and softer on crime. Now, how many times, I'm just wondering, why does it seem like Miss Grant doesn't want to go somewhere where she can debate or to talk about the issues with you one-on-one? It's like she doesn't want any confrontation like at the nonpartisan debate. She sent her husband there to sit on the front row and kind of basically heckle you and try to bait you into doing something that would discredit you or make you look like a hothead, or I don't know what the goal was, but it just looked unprofessional. And that's got to change. We can't have something like that going on at the solicitor's office.
Right. And I'm not a hothead. If he thinks he can rattle me, I was a coach. I've heard it all. I've been heckled a lot, and you just know that you got to do your job. And you can't, even as an attorney, if you let a defense counsel rattle you, then you're about to lose that jury trial. And a lot of defense attorneys are good at it.
Right.
And, some of them are my friends, and we get in the courtroom together. They're going to be doing things to try to get me off my game or try to get me away from my case. And that's one thing that's important to train them is how to stay on course. And it's incredibly important. And I wanted to talk about too, because you were mentioning with the law enforcement officers leaving, you got to remember with all these unnecessary reductions, think about it from the officer standpoint. They got to be thinking, this is my work product. What's the point in me going the extra? All it's going to do is be reduced. And I hear that a lot from officers, especially at church, is they go, sometimes I wonder, like, why am I doing this? Yeah, I went on a ride along once. We did the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Shift, and they had us do that so that we could know what it was like to be an officer and be up all night and then have to come in and testify the next day. And from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., I thought I was about to die waiting for the courthouse doors to open. I can't imagine how officers do it time and time again. But during that ride along, we were at an FEA call, and we went on the front porch. There's dogs barking, there's kids crying, there's a lady there bleeding, and we're like, where's the perpetrator? And they're like, he went into the woods. And the officer goes, does he have a gun? And they go, I don't know, probably. But we were sitting there on that front porch with somebody thinking he's about to go to jail somewhere in the wood line, and that was pretty scary. That was pretty eye-opening. So you got to think from an officer, if it's just going to be reduced down the road, what's the point of me putting my life at risk?
Exactly.
And so you got to remember, it's their work product, and they do a good job, and they're trying to protect the community, and we need to respect that as prosecutors and not do what's easy, because it's intimidating to announce ready for trial and wondering what's going to happen, so that they can be in the courtroom and be confident, be like, it doesn't matter what happens on the stand. I'm ready. I know what to do. I know the law, and let's get going. And I think it's just good from both ends, and you'll see less turnover on both sides of it, because they know that you respect their work.
It's a thankless job on both ends, and I mean, and especially in your situation, you're going to hear the sob stories on every case, and it's a fine line who's actually needs the help and just screwed up, or who's just trying to get one over on you. And at the same time, you've got to be consistent across the board. I mean, it was like, you got to have strong leadership. I would think that you'd sounds like you're going to set a atmosphere and lay out a foundation that all your other prosecutors that work for you are going to follow the same thing. You can't have one doing one thing, one doing another. And, if they need to deviate, that would end up being your call. Well,
right.
Hey, we need to give them leniency, or no, you got to stick to it. I don't care what you believe,
Well, I mean, there's going to be situations where the state's posture in a case changes. There could be a ruling from the Supreme Court that's negative. I mean, we've experienced that a lot with DUIs and prosecution based off the Supreme Court has decided now that the laws changed with breathalyzers, or this is a refusal of this is no longer okay. It can change your posture, or your star witness could get arrested for something with false statements. But if it's not a legal reason that has made the state's posture change, then it becomes an unnecessary reduction. And that's where it's not okay, because nobody has a crystal ball. So I'm not going to reduce something just because you're saying, oh, I'm going to lose my job. Well, and the defense counsel always does a good job. And one of the greatest things I ever saw was in Walton County. And he was denying a bond on somebody that was a pretty violent offender. And the defense counsel said, Judge, if you deny his bond, he's going to lose his job. You can't make him lose his job. And the judge goes, well, wait a minute. I didn't cost him his job. Him acting this way cost him his job. And I feel like you gotta take that approach, is people need to be held responsible for their actions.
right.
And that they try to pass that blame onto somebody else. Well, you can't let them do that to you. You still got to evaluate the cases and not fall for that stuff. Right. I mean, at probation revocations, you see it all the time, to the point that probation officers had joked with me, like, people must do interviews at the jail because, they won't have a job. They're supposed to get a job. And then all of a sudden they show up for their probation revocation hearing and they're like, oh yeah, I got a job now. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And it's amazing how that happens.
Right. And it's going to get worse the way we see it in society. And I know you see it my kids are 24 and 26 now, but it started years ago. I mean, the schools aren't even teaching these kids accountability anymore. They always get to pass it off on somebody else. And then it just snowballs into natural society. And it's a shame that it takes the solicitor's office or legal system to scare people straight, per se, And we had talked about it beforehand. A lot of people don't realize that Gainesville has a big underground and it's well hidden cartel and drug problem. Mm-hmm. And it's not the Hispanics, it's not the Latinos, the gangs that they think that are coming, that you see on TV. And I mean, they're not big gang bangers. This is your next door neighbor. Mm-hmm. Going out and playing golf, and, running a normal life. I mean, it's embedded in our county, and how does the solicitor's office approach that and be tough before it gets to the felonious stage, up to the DA? I mean, they have to. I mean, how does that all work?
What are you talking about with the cartel?
Yeah, I mean, with any of the drug offenses, I mean, is it good to bust the low-level guys, or do you just help the DA build cases or how does that all work? Because you got to start somewhere. Everybody's not going to get caught with 50 kilos or something, you know. I mean,
Right.
It starts with the smaller cases, and do you scare them straight, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, not really scaring straight is more as making them responsible for their actions. What you'll see a lot with misdemeanor drugs is a lot of times it's a misdemeanor drug offense because they already have sold the other stuff. I feel like that's where investigations comes in, and working well with law enforcement and the DA's office is to find out, you know, is this, you know, a kid that's just experimenting with marijuana, or is this you know, drug dealer that's been driving around town selling his drugs, and we only happen to catch the misdemeanor marijuana, because the only drugs that you'll see in the solicitor's office is marijuana.
Right.
Everything else is going to be up in the district attorney's office. So it's really, and that would be more of their situation. But the thing is you still need to investigate the misdemeanors. And if you're waiting 6 months to get it accused, well, a lot of that evidence is going to be gone. And you can do things like electronic warrants, which, you know, I was a judicial staff attorney for 2 years. Before that, we didn't get one electronic warrant. That's electronic warrants and stuff like wiretaps, which you wouldn't do on a misdemeanor. That's more to break up the cartel. But they have things called carpenter warrants, and you know, even just looking at the flock camera data to find out where people have been, to see, all right, is this a drug dealer, or is this just somebody that, you know, got caught with misdemeanor amount of marijuana?
Right.
John, since you mentioned the flock cameras, I'm sure you've kind of been following, or you've seen some of the controversial surveillance state type issues that have been propping up with the flock cameras. And like, what's your stance on those things? I understand they help, you know, Leo and you guys at the solicitor office and for the DA too, just to get some evidence and stuff. But at what point is it unconstitutional surveillance on everyday citizens, and where do we potentially draw the line for these things?
Well, I mean, it's not unconstitutional surveillance because you're driving down the road. I mean, I can look out my window right here and look at everybody driving down the road. Now, if you start investigating cars without reason, I mean, and you really shouldn't have the time as law enforcement officer just to be scoping out this car drove by, let's see where they're going. Like, that's not the sort of thing that's happening. It's more retrospective. Like, we had the cameras out there, a big crime's been committed, we know this car was used, all right, let's go look for it. And that's where it should be using. Anything outside of that would be improper.
So I mean, this is kind of what happens though, is because you know, a lot of the you get one of those 1 bad apples, 2 bad apples, 3 bad apples within an agency or whoever. So how do you curb that?
Well, I mean, they shouldn't have any interest. Even a bad apple shouldn't have any interest to it. Like, if I'm driving down the road today, my car drives by 10 flock cameras, they shouldn't have any interest in what I'm doing. They should be too busy. Number one, and even a bad apple, I don't know what they would gain from it. I mean, even if they try to, hey, let's scope this out. Now, if it's the sort of situation to where it's like an ex-girlfriend or something, then they need to be charged.
Right.
And so as far as that goes, but I mean, I feel like it's more a fear tactic to think that the law enforcement is doing that, because I mean, if you think about it, somebody just driving from their house to CVS or to the gas station or to work, I mean, that's pretty boring, and it's a waste of your time. So if there is a bad apple that's doing that and they're logging into the flock system for no reason that's not assigned to a case, then that needs to be looked at too, because, you know, for that not to be boring to them, there's more going on there, and that needs to be looked into and maybe charges made on that.
We've had, I think the reason we've had 2 cases locally where law enforcement officers have been doing. The sheriff in Brazelton he just killed himself because he was fixing to get prosecuted for harassing his girlfriend. And then one in Houston or somewhere the other day just got fired for doing the same thing. I mean, you know.
Well, it's a flock system specifically that's, I guess, unencrypted. It's really easily hackable. There's a guy out of I believe Sandy Springs that did a YouTube video investigation on just, you know, hey, look at this. You know, I can log in and look at this as a public person. Like anybody can log in because the IPs were publicly available. And there was one not long ago where the flock camera was pointed at a kid's gym, a children's gymnastics center. I don't believe this was in Georgia, but somewhere around the country. And it was also one of the cameras that was publicly available to view. And so that, you know, it's like a privacy issue and a concern of just stuff like that as to who actually has access to these cameras. And John, thank you for clarifying, like, you know, it's not unconstitutional for them. You know, if you're using a state highway or a government road, you don't have any kind of say in privacy at that point. But at the same time, these things shouldn't be accessed unless they're assigned to a case. So that's good to know.
And I mean, it goes even further, even stuff like air tags and that you can just throw in somebody's car or bag. I mean, you can use that for bad purposes as well. And you can see online that they'll have ones that Apple iPhone doesn't alert you that you're being followed. And I mean, that kind of stuff happens all the time. People get stalked all the time. We got to find a way to stop it and find out when they find out what's going on, they call the police and we take care of that.
Gotcha.
There's got to be safeguards put in place. So if people are hacking into the flock cameras or they're pointed at some door to a kid's, you know, function and people are using it to spy on kids, then somebody needs to call that out. It needs to be repointed. It needs to make sure it's pointing at the road, not at some doorway. And then try to find out, you know, who's been in the system and let's stop it.
Just from your experience, John, how quickly is it, you know, how quickly is technology moving for you guys to keep up with, and you know how quickly are criminals kind of like catching on to new tactics to, you know, commit crime?
They constantly are one step ahead. Like you said with the flock cameras, and then what they start doing is start stealing cars at gas stations and stuff, and people leave their keys in it or go, you know. There was a problem in Oconee County. A lot of people leave their cars unlocked because it's a safe area. Well, they start stealing those cars and then go commit a crime and dump it somewhere, thinking that they can get away with it. You know, even we were talking about earlier with the drugs. You get a drug, you put on the controlled substance list, and then they move a protein, so then it's not officially the same drug, and so it's not part of the controlled substance. So they're always adjusting.
Gotcha.
And you got to stay on top of that, and you got to know what legally to do when that happens.
Oh yeah, I've got a question now. There's been a lot of controversy nationwide about TPOs and how they're not. Cops don't want to enforce them much anymore because too much he said, she said. And I know I used to have to try to get one against my ex-wife sometimes because she was, you know, stuff she was doing to my kids. And we used to have to go to Carol, I think it was Carol Campbell's office, and she would be the one to determine whether or not we got the TPO. I mean, how is that still how it goes now? Or they just go to the solicitor's office and say, if I needed a TPO against somebody harassing me, how would that process work? Because I think a lot of people were confused, and is a police officer going to enforce it, and what can be done?
Well, the police officer should be enforcing it. With somebody came into the solicitor's office, and they do a lot with the battery FEAs, and I would encourage them to do so if somebody's hurting them and they need to get away, because the most dangerous time for a victim is when they're leaving. That's when they're more likely to get killed. And if you look, Hall County's in the 75th percentile for domestic murder. It's a major problem here. I mean, we're a higher percentile than any of the counties surrounding us. including Gwinnett. So it's a major, major problem. But they have to go in front of a judge. It's an actual hearing. A lot of times the magistrate court judges will fill in, but they actually go in front of a judge and have to present evidence to get the TPO. Now, when you're arrested for battery FEA, it automatically is put as part of bond conditions. And that's for the victim's safety.
Right.
And there's the whole victim bill of rights that needs to be followed to protect the victims of crime. And but no, there's judicial oversight over those TPOs, and that's what I was talking about, the TPO registry.
Right.
That's why that's important, because a lot of counties weren't following it. Hall County wasn't until Judge Robertson was like, wait a second, why aren't we presenting putting this stuff into the TPO registry? And Judge Heck in Magistrate Court and Judge Robertson went to some other counties and found out their process, because I mean it's fluid. TPO is issued. If the TPO is then changed, then law enforcement needs to know, because you don't want somebody to get arrested because nobody updated the TPO registry. But if an officer sees that somebody is violating a TPO, then they need to make an arrest. It doesn't matter what county. And they need to, all the counties need to be updating the TPO registry so that they can be confident that the information in there is accurate.
Right. Now, if I need the TPO, do I need to get my own attorney, or would y'all, the solicitor's office, like represent me or a battered wife or whatever?
The solicitor's office wouldn't represent you. We'd point you in the right direction. Legal aid might represent you.
Okay. A person shouldn't have to pay $500 an hour to get a TPO.
No. They should not.
And that's a part of that's why a lot of people don't get them, because a good defense attorney or whoever you go to is going to charge you, a couple of grand, just because that's what it's going to take to prepare for the case.
No, you can get an appointed attorney on for those hearings, and legal aid can help you if you're a victim, and they're actually in the courthouse and can help you. So you don't need, like, if you come to the solicitor's office on accident, they can send you up to the 4th floor to get help from the people that deal with the TPR hearings.
Right. Because I think the public needs to be more, and there's a lot of things that the public needs more education about what y'all do and what the processes are. And I think you'll tackle a lot of that. But I understand you got bigger problems because that office has been a shambles for a while. But what are some things you can implement right off the bat that'll get the things going? You're talking stuff that maybe can be implemented in the first 6 months that you take office, and not something that's going to take 2 or 3 years to get turned around.
Well, I think the first thing, especially day one, is bringing the temperature of the office to a friendly temperature.
Right.
Making sure that people know we're all on the same team. We're in this together, open communication if you got a problem, and having those clear written policies already in place. I mean, if I win in May, I don't take office till January. If I can't have full written policies ready for day one for everybody to know, I can't have a plea. I can have a plea recommendation book ready to go and clear policies that are easy to follow. Then that's a problem. So I can do that, and that would be the first thing. Is I think fixing the office culture and the office environment needs to be the first thing. Is you get that stabilized first, and then we can move on to, I want to do a domestic violence docket to streamline those cases so that they're not going on for 3 years, because I mean, it's a situation to where people have bond conditions, there's a TPO out on people, and we need to get these cases resolved quicker.
Right.
And that's a benefit to both the defendant and the victim, because they don't need to be out in limbo. A lot of these victims get a lot of pressure from their family. You need to be able to come to the prosecutor office and be like, well, you came here, and you can tell the family that you talked to me, but we're going forward. We're going forward quickly, and let's get this thing
right
to court.
Well, and as well as I do, a lot of the defendants, they're going to try to continue it out as long as they can, and that's not fair to the victims.
It's not, and that's something that a case never gets better with age.
No.
So those are our items that, because of bond conditions, the state has a restriction on them that we can legally fast track, and so that's something that needs to happen.
Right. Now, Shiv had talked about how he used to oversee law students from all over. He was like a mentor, like thing to them. I had a program. Where do y'all have something like that? Where do y'all recruit potential employees or potential prosecutors when they're coming out of law school? Do y'all have deals set up with the University of Georgia or different law schools to where, they kind of point them in your direction, or what?
Yeah, and there needs to be a robust intern program. I mean, even through the University of Georgia, they have a prosecution clinic where they encourage those prosecutors to go to different counties. Well, they need to be coming to Hall County. We need to be one of the main people. With victim advocates, just right in Brunel. You need to have an intern program to get people to know that what victim advocacy is about and encourage them. There used to be a victim advocate program straight in Brunel. We need to get those interns in the office so they can see if that's something that they're passionate about. So going to the colleges and universities, talking to their career centers and letting them know, hey, we got internships available. And something like the solicitor's office is pretty advantageous because they can really get some courtroom experience, where you might not be able to do that in the district attorney's office because the cases are so in depth and so serious. I mean, you don't want a law student handling a child crime for sure.
Right.
But if you have some speeding tickets and traffic offenses and stuff like that, where they might be able to get a bench trial under their belt or two. And so it's a great office to be an intern at, but you got to reach out to those universities, and not just the ones in Georgia, because there's people that live in Georgia that, go out of state. And it's just a matter of reaching out to those and telling people that you're available and get that rolling again.
Right. Yeah. Cause I know it's gotta be hard because it's like any other profession. They see the dollar signs. Oh, I'm going to law school. Everybody wants to make $500 an hour, $600 an hour coming right out of law school. And that's just not feasible. They've got to get their feet wet. Mm-hmm. And I would think even if you want to be a defense attorney, you'd want to be a prosecutor for the first 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
To learn both sides and how the whole process works.
Right. And you'll get a lot of prosecutors too, because people want to be in the courtroom. When you go to law school, you don't dream about billing hours at a computer.
Right.
And just sitting there and you're not going to see the courtroom for 10, 15 years. So as far as reaching out, because a lot of people come to that realization in law school. A lot of law schools do a good job of explaining, and you need to go speak when law schools will let you speak on about careers. I mean, there were several different meetings that we had, and where prosecutors would come, JAG Corps would come, big law firms would come, and they would kind of describe what life would be like. And you need to be there describing that to them so they know if you want to be in court and you believe in justice, then you need to take a look at prosecution. And then you also have the addition of student loan forgiveness. It's a little shorter in if you become a prosecutor or you do government service. And a lot of times what people will do is they'll come for that because they want to be in court. They want to get loan forgiveness, but then they end up being like, this is a fantastic job. I want to keep doing it. And then you end up with career prosecutors.
Right. Well, and then a lot of times it's a lot more about than the money. I mean, and everybody thinks that all defense attorneys make a lot of money, and that's just not the case. I mean, you got to be good at your job. I mean, and it's just, I know it's hard to find people that want to do that. I've got several friends and a couple of fraternity brothers that never even set foot in the courtroom. Everything they do is just not plea deals, but they are negotiated deals and
mediations. You get mediation for 4 hours to work something out. And I mean, for people that like that, that's great. And if you make a lot of money doing that. But one thing I found, especially working in solicitor's office, is a lot of people will start out thinking like, I'm going to do this for a couple of years to learn how to try a case, and then I'm going to go into civil practice, or, I'm going to go out on my own. A lot of them end up saying, no, I want to be a part of a drug gang task force. I want to go after, big time players, or, I care about victims and I want to handle more sex crimes. And they end up wanting to take the path to be a special victims unit prosecutor, or they want to go to the AG's office or to the U.S. Attorney's office. And a lot of them, when they get rolling in prosecution and they start seeing what it's about and they feel comfortable going to trial, that's the path you end up seeing them take. So,
Right, because I know I've been on several trials. I don't know how I've gotten so lucky, but over my when I've been selected for jury, and I swear I ain't gonna mention names, but I was on a child molestation case, and you could tell the ADA that was on there, she had never been in the courtroom much. I mean, it was just, and it hurt the case a good bit. I mean, it was just, you could tell she wasn't confident in what she was doing. And, and that stuff matters. And you can't get that at the ADA where you can at the solicitor's office. And I mean, and that's what a lot of people got to understand. It's not all in lights to start with. They got to pay your dues.
mm-hmm. And you'll be surprised. And one thing that surprised me is how similar prosecuting certain cases, like certain misdemeanors, line up with felonies and the same issues and the same things that might make you uncomfortable. Believe it or not, the DUI trial is very similar to a murder trial because of the way that the witnesses line up and the type of witnesses that you have. Obviously, battery FEA matches up with any victim crime.
Right.
And a lot of times what makes you uncomfortable, you can have misdemeanors and needing child witnesses, and you got to learn how to do that. And handling a child witness is something that you need to see somebody else do first that has experience doing it before you can ever feel comfortable trying to do it yourself.
Right.
Because there's definitely an art to it, and it's definitely very stressful knowing that you're going to have a child on the stand, because being on the stand is not fun, and you don't want to do that to a child, but it's necessary in certain cases to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of times the judge can just talk to them in their office, but sometimes, like you said, they've got to be in that box on the stand. I mean, and it's tough. I know my kids had to do it when I got custody of my kids against my ex, and they were 13, 11, and 13 at the time, and I couldn't imagine it. Because there's one case I was on, there's like a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old had to be on, and it was nerve-wracking just the jury having to sit there and watch it. I couldn't imagine having to ask them questions and,
right.
And because, they're just so fragile. I mean, they're going to break down if you push them too far.
Right. And that's why when I talk about in a lot of the speeches that I give is back before 2020, you used to need 4 to 6 years experience in a solicitor's office to get to one of those ADA type positions. Unless you had pretty extensive experience in like a prosecutor clinic, but that would be a rare exception. And or you need to go to a DA's office that handles misdemeanors as well, because you have to be a certain size to have a solicitor's office. But if before you send people into those major felonies, they need to have extensive trial experience.
Right.
And they need somebody that's handled those cases, because it can prepare them for what they're going to experience. Because there's a lot of things you don't consider, like just talking to the family of somebody that's deceased, or let's just take it was a domestic murder, and sitting there and talking to them and knowing how to talk to them and knowing that you're going to get, there was 7 prior offenses. Why did this happen? And they're going to blame you, whether or not it's your office's fault or not. It could be in other counties, but how to talk to people and how to get them to understand what happened. And it's a tough situation, but it's something you got to be trained to know how to do.
Right. And I know we had talked with Shiv about the DA's office, and he had mentioned how many employees and how big that. How does that compare to the solicitor? How big is it? Is it bigger than the DA's office? You'd figure it has to be at least about the same size, or is it?
I don't know how many people did Shiv says in the DA's office right now?
I think he said like 62 or something.
Okay, the solicitor office is about half that size.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a lot of people for a county that's got 230,000 people in the county.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the solicitor's office was 30 people before my opponent took office. She made it 33 because she's ramped up the pretrial diversion program. But it's generally around 30 people. The Hall County is big enough now where we should be getting a 4th state court judge. And when that happens, you'll need a victim advocate, 2 paralegals, 2 more attorneys, another investigator. So, I mean, the office is going to grow. for sure. But right now it's at 30 people.
Well, I think
I
he
guess
said it
33.
averaged like 12 to 15 people per judge or whatever, you know. It's what it worked out to, you know, just because he had certain people signed to certain judges. Is
Mhm.
how it used to be. And I was just thinking, well, hell, the solicitors, y'all handle a whole lot more cases than the DA. I mean, you know, you figure y'all would be at least that size or maybe even bigger. I mean,
Right. The difference is with the felony work, there becomes like an incident report for a misdemeanor might be 2 pages, where a major felony could be 30 pages. It takes 1 to 2 days, day and a half to try a misdemeanor. It can take 1 week to a month to try a felony. So, they need, because the cases are so big and
right.
they need more people, especially on the support side, to handle that type of caseload. I mean, the investigations alone to go through,
Yeah.
get it ready for trial. I mean, they may have a misdemeanor may have 2 to 4 witnesses, where I've tried a felony trial with 26 witnesses.
Right.
You
I
might
couldn't imagine having to go through 26,
yeah. It's definitely a task. You have to be pretty organized and structured to.
Right.
Actually, in that case, we did so well that because we anticipated certain objections, and we went ahead and had case law ready for the judge, because we were trying some new things especially with the investigator. And at one point, the defense counsel objected, and I said, I go, Your Honor, we have some case law on that. And he goes, I withdraw my objection. They know what they're doing. And I thought that was funny, but I was kind of mad. I was like, great, we're going to get ineffective assistance of counsel. But structuring it and being organized like that so you can go ahead and anticipate is something incredibly important.
No, yeah, it is. And me personally, I would feel a whole lot better with having a solicitor that's had that type of experience. That means, they can handle pretty much anything that's thrown their way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that Miss Grant has that experience.
I don't know. She hadn't talked about her experience much. I know she wasn't a prosecutor. She was in private practice for the last 12, 13 years. I don't know what she's done.
Nobody does.
Trial experience wise.
Yeah, no, because everything that she's been to that I know she's been to has been like a pat on the back, just introduce yourself, and she don't get any questions or anything about her history, and and that throws up red flags to me. And I know I appreciate you being open and honest about your history, and and from what I've seen, you've basically been out in the public getting to know people, and you've been an open book.
Mm-hmm. That's just the way I've always been. I mean, from back when I was a coach, you go around, you try to talk to the local businesses to get them to support your program. And I was talking to an owner of Chick-fil-A, and he said, well, you know what, if you're not in it for the community, you're doing it wrong. And so if you're an elected official, you need to be out doing it for the community. You need to be accessible. You need to be out there. You need to be supporting these organizations that provide services to victims, that provide services even to defendants, so that you know where to send people, so that if somebody has a drug problem and they're going to a certain place to get treatment, you know what they do there and if they do a good job or not. So you can kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the community.
And speaking about that, we're getting rehab. Are y'all involved? Is the solicitor's office the main ones with the drug court, or is that more the DA or the larger cases? Or
that would be the DA's office.
Okay.
The solicitor's office does DUI court.
Okay, the DUI court.
You used to do veterans court, which was a great thing, but around COVID, the kind of veterans court fizzled out. The veterans court ended up being a great thing because we got a lot of services for veterans, even that didn't commit crimes, because we had a lot of mentor program going on, and if somebody needed help, even you could come get help or come talk to us or to those mentors to help with your VA benefits and get set up like you need to be set up.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a great thing. I'd like to see it gotten back up, because my dad's got Agent Orange, and I have to take him down to VA all the time, and he's 100% disabled from Agent Orange. He had to fight 20 years to get his disability, even though he's had the skin cancer and the pacemaker, defibrillator. They just didn't want to do it. But all this time down there, the VA has a lot of programs that they don't educate the public about.
Right.
And where a veterans court can say, hey, there's these programs that you can get into that the veterans don't know anything about. And, you know, and that's good. That it'd be nice to see it get back up to worst case, just to educate the veterans a little bit.
Yeah, it would be great. What's tough about getting it going when we got it started, I was actually one of the prosecutors that got it started. I believe mental health court has a veterans track now up in felony court. The biggest obstacle we had is veterans didn't want to identify themselves as veterans. So you'd have to pay attention to how they kind of carry themselves, because you can tell if somebody's a veteran if you pay attention, and you could ask them about it, see if they're interested in that type of program. But that is something that I would like to get going again. I thought it was beneficial.
Yeah, you know, it's a shame when a veteran don't want to act as a veteran, you know. And there's no reason for a veteran to be homeless. And, you know, if you can help in any way to get them with all the benefits that a veteran should get, that has access to, that they don't know about, you know, it can change their lives immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be good to do that. So, Viral, you got anything else?
No, not really.
Well, John, we appreciate your time, and the main thing as we get off here, just hit on a few main things that you're going to hammer down if you get elected, and why they should vote for you, and how you're going to change things, because we got 2 weeks left, 10 days or so, and most people don't vote until the day of the election, May 19th. So we're going to get this out there and get your name, you know, get your message across. Just hammer in a few things that you're going to differentiate from what the office is now and where you want to take the office.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's basically 2 different theories in prosecution, especially in misdemeanor prosecution. There's some that believe, like my opponent, don't love a case, don't hate a case, just move it.
Right.
That's not me. I'm more of the let's dig in and hold people accountable for their actions. Let's make a difference in the community. Let's focus on public safety. Let's focus for standing up for crime victims, because they need somebody to stand up for them. And that's the approach that I take. Want to work on the teamwork with inside the office, work on the office structure not being so chaotic, so that we can stop the turnover and get it back to like it used to be, where prosecutors come, they get trained up to then go to felony prosecution in an area that they're passionate about. We shouldn't be seeing victim advocates leaving right and left. We shouldn't be seeing investigators leaving right and left. We shouldn't be seeing the leadership in the office leaving at all. The leadership's your ride or die. And when your leadership's leaving, you can tell that there's a major problem. So I ask for everybody's vote. On May 19th will be the election day. I believe I'm on the 3rd page of the ballot. You vote for John Batchelor for Solicitor General. I appreciate y'all taking the time to talk to me today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we did too. And just before we get off, you said at the debate, how many people's left the office so far? I mean, it was just unacceptable about how many had already left. I mean, you got the proof that you can show anybody that questions it. I mean, it was just, I was kind of in shock. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. When my opponent was appointed, 3 people left the office and knew they didn't want to work for her. Since she took office, 17 additional. So it's a total of 20 that have left in the last 11 months. And her chief prosecutor, her chief investigator, her deputy chief prosecutor, all 3 of them have left since January of this year. So there's been major turnover, and it's really, and I've talked to a lot of the people that have left. I mean, we're talking victim advocates, paralegals. Every single position's leaving, and every single position in a solicitor's office is incredibly important, because, like you talk about, there's the huge volume of cases, and you need that leadership in there to train the new people to handle the serious cases, what you would call like a special victims unit type situation, and just to be able to survive in the courtroom. right now, I believe they've got 4 trial attorneys. Well, you need 6 trial attorneys because there's 3 divisions and you need 2 trial attorneys in each courtroom in order to manage. That's just to manage.
Right.
And that's not including the Solicitor General themselves. Like you need 6 ready to go trial prosecutors that are courtroom ready. And right now, I believe they have 4.
Right. And as a victim, you want to see the same faces when you come into the office every time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to see you deal with somebody new that's having to get up to speed on your case.
Right.
What matters.
And you know, that's one thing that people don't understand about prosecution, is like that you'll move your prosecutors around in front of the different judges from time to time to get them experience in front of different types of judges, but you never change those victim advocates because that's their point of contact. And so when you have victim advocates leaving and, you know, you're sitting here in month 4 of your case and you're talking to your 4th victim advocate, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because you don't know the contact. And so at one point, I mean, at what point do they sit there and go, well, nobody's fight for me, nobody cares about my case, and just give up and be like, no, I don't want to prosecute anymore. Right.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I appreciate that. Just 20 people in the last year. That's just less than a year. That's just unbelievable to me. I mean, I just can't comprehend that. You said you only got 30 employees.
Yeah, and some have been replaced, but even the replacements, they come in and then they leave.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're talking 2/3 new people, if everybody's been replaced, then that's just not sustainable.
No, it's not. And when your leadership leaves, then you don't have anybody to train the new people.
Right. So good Lord, maybe you can get in office and, you know, get it headed in the right direction because we're pulling for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say I already voted for you, John, just simply because of the fact that you were willing to show up to, you know, the bipartisan debate. That speaks volumes to me, and just the fact that you were able to show up. So, yeah, I already cast my vote for you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck. Hopefully you win, pull it out, and you know we'll have better days in Hall County.
I think we can. I think we can pull it off, and things will improve.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll say I voted for you as well. I mean, I don't think there was any question. I mean, you're the best person for the job, and I just hope everybody else can take their blinders off in this town and realize, hey, we can't keep going down the same road.
Sure. Well, I appreciate both y'all's support. Go tell as many as you can.
We are.
It's a big number we got to hit. The county's gotten big. So.
Oh, yeah. And what sucks is in the midterms at some of your most important elections, and only 20 to 25% of the registered voters are going to show up versus 60% in a presidential election year, you know. And I wish we could change that, but that's another animal. But hopefully the people that won't change are the ones that are coming out.
Right. It's important for people to, especially in Hall County, like you talking about with the growth, it's important that they get involved. And so that we can get the county in the right direction like it needs to be, because Hall County is one of the best places to live in the state.
Oh, it is, and it gets a bad rap from people, but that just won't change. And people don't understand that, and we've seen it firsthand, Viral and myself and you, and the work that our group and Hall Inform's doing. I mean, we're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
May not be a big difference yet, but by God, we're opening people's eyes, and we're starting to, you know, and we're glad to have people coming out like you running, because it used to just be you go to vote and it was all incumbents down through there with no challengers.
Right.
And that's not the case anymore.
That's good. And I appreciate, you know, you and Hall Informed, Conservative Citizens, all of y'all that do that to bring stuff to light, because I think it's important that you hold people accountable. That's one thing about Christian law school. You got to realize we're all fallen. And if you don't have people holding you accountable and the right people holding you accountable, you'll make mistakes. And that's how you end up in a bad situation. So you need people holding you accountable. You need to be accessible so that people can hold you accountable.
Exactly. And I think Hall County's headed in the right direction. And hopefully come May 19th around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, we'll have you as the new Solicitor General.
Let's hope so.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And
thanks for coming on, John. Appreciate you, man.
And, we appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have you on on down the line and celebrating your victory.
Yeah, you're welcome to ask me. I'll come on anytime you want me to.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.